Session 11, Principles of Programming. Every piece of software, from a single word processor, such as a Microsoft Notepad, to the most advanced image editing program, such as the Adobe Photoshop, is made by one or more computer programmers who use a programming language that tells the computer what to do and how to act. At the end of this session, you'll be able to differentiate between the various types of programming languages. Of course, you'll be able to give examples of programming languages and also understand and identify the phases in the program development life cycle. You'll also be able to understand and appreciate the methods of testing computer programs. The concept of programming. The concept of programming, or the concept of general purpose programming, in fact, predates the development of computers. In the field of mathematical logic, in the early 20th century, logicians created their own programming languages. Their motivation originally sprang from the concept of a proof system, a set of rules in which logical truth could be derived mathematically. Fortran was one of the first high-level languages, and it was developed by a team led by Backus at IBM. They also developed a series of programming languages, and we have example being BASIC, Fortran, COBOL, and different languages. A programmer is a person who writes the required computer programs and, of course, who understand the programming language. Programmers translate the expected tasks given in human understandable form into machine understandable form by using compilers and interpreters. The types of programming language or languages. There are basically three categories or families of programming languages. We have the machine language, the assembly language, and then the high-level languages. The machine languages are the native language of the computer system. It is the language that the computer understands, and it's made up of the zeros and ones, the bits, the bytes, the zeros and ones, and any program written in the machine language is easily executed since the machine understands the zeros and ones. But it's very difficult to code and to write programs using the machine language because of the zeros and ones, which are not friendly, the binary system. The machine language depends largely on the binary system for numbers, for operators, for commands, and for execution. And so in trying to move to another level, the assembly language was also introduced. With this assembly language, it tries to introduce certain acronyms and certain abbreviations in English-like form. So instead of the classical zeros and ones, we now move to words like add, sum, print, and what have you, which are English-like in the programming. So it makes life a little easier for programmers because of the zeros and ones that were so difficult to adhere to and to work with in the machine language. Now with the assembler, after the assembler has compiled or the assembly language has been used to code a program, it needs to move to or to be translated to machine language by an assembler. So the assembler will take the machine language, will take the assembly language to the machine language for the machine language for the computer to understand. So for any assembly language, there is the need to use an assembler to change the codes from the assembly language to the machine language for the computer system to understand. Now, in moving forward, the high-level language was also into this. And with this, it became easier for programmers, since that is more English-like oriented. So you can have, for example, profit is equal to selling price minus cost price. And this is more understandable than the 0001, 0001, hash, and all that. So the high-level language became, favorite of programmers. With the high-level languages, it must also be translated to machine language by interpreters or compilers so that the computer can also understand. And of course, we have two main types of high-level languages. We have the procedural and then the object-oriented languages. The procedural ones depends highly on structures. So how the language is being structured, the codes are being structured. But with the object-oriented, the focus is on classes and objects. And these are the sharp difference between these two high-level programming languages. With the high level, as I said earlier on, you need an interpreter or a compiler to change the codes from the high-level languages to a machine language so as to be executed. The programming development cycle. Before a program is designed, you need to go through the program development cycle. And with this cycle, we're talking about four main processes. First, you need to analyze the problem. You need to design the problem or design the program. You analyze the problem, you design the program, and also you code the program, and then you test the program. These are the four main steps in the program development cycle. For a given problem, you need to analyze it. Ask some few questions. What must the program do? What should be the output as a result of the programming? What are the inputs required? What should be the report generated? And so on and so forth. And these are some of the questions that the programmer will ask before trying to analyze the program. It could also be a designer as well, since both of them can play these dual roles. The next step or the next process is to try and design the program. In designing the program, we looked at one key word called algorithm. The algorithm is just a step-by-step procedures that are at the doorstep of the programmer or the analyst to use. So you design the program based on this algorithm from one step to the other. Flowcharts could be used, data flow diagrams could also be used to enhance the work and to have the pictorial form of it. Now, after you have designed the program, you can decide to use the top-down or the bottom-up approach in the design phase. With this design, you move on to the programming, the coding stage. So with this, you are going to code the program. In coding the program, you're going to use the language that the expert understands. I'm talking about the one to code the program. We have different programming languages. We have the Fortran, the COBOL, Visual Basic, we have C++, .NET, so many languages. So it depends on the programmer, the language that is familiar with to code the program. Now, after the program has been coded, the program needs to be tested. And here we have different types of testing. You can test the program by codes, you can test the program by sample data, and then you can also test the program, the overall program, as the output or the end product. And this must also be done. Initially, almost all programs may contain few errors, so you need to debug. And in programming, the errors are called bugs. And when you are trying to rectify the errors, we term it as debugging. So you need to debug all the bugs, all the errors in the programming, and that will make the program complete. Now, let's turn our attention to the types of errors. We can have the syntax error, and this is as a result of not using the right punctuations, comments, the language structure. So any violation of the rules in the programming can give rise to the syntax error. If there's a need or there's a place that you need to use double quotes and use single quotes, it will amount to a syntax error. If you have to use space and you use hyphen, it will amount to syntax error. And this type of error can disturb the entire program. You can spend so many hours trying to debug the syntax errors. The next error that I want us to look at is the semantic errors. The semantic are not like the syntax. They are the logical sequence. And it is very difficult to identify the semantic in the codes. They are detected after the program has been run. For example, if the program has been programmed or the program is intended to give A as a result of 80 marks, and then it is giving F as a result of 80 marks, then there is a logical problem. And this is what we term semantic error. There are other type of error that we call the runtime error. And with this, they are the errors that are associated with the entire program. And they occur, this type of error occurs on execution, mostly caused by invalid data. So the actual program can give out wrong information or wrong data based on invalid data. And this is what is termed runtime error. So we have the semantic, systematic, and then we also have the runtime errors. Now, let's quickly look at the data types. In programming, basically, we have three main types of data. We have the numeric, we have the character, and then we have the Boolean data. For the numeric, is assigned to data that picks values, figures. And we can have the integer data, or we can have the floating point data. For the integer data, takes the discrete numbers, and then the floating point can take the decimals and other floating figures. But with the character data, we're talking about the alphabets, and sometimes it could even be the alphanumerics. But with the Boolean data, we're talking about true or false, yes and no, and alike. And these are the types of data that are used in programming. This is where we end our principles of programming. I'll be back very soon after you've taken the opportunity to go through the references so that we can start the next session.